today's workout, it's going to be all about rotation and loading of the hips individually from side to side. So you might even say this workout's geared towards strength training for running or locomotion, jogging, walking, etc. So we have 4 movements, and the goal today is to get through this thing about 4 to 8 times. So during this quarantine, I've really liked doing things for a lot of rounds and getting a lot of volume in, especially since we don't necessarily have access to a lot of the weights we normally do. So volume is kind of key when it comes to maintenance and making any improvements. So again, 4 movements. We'll shoot for anywhere from 4 to 8 rounds, just kind of depending on how much time you have to work with. We got 2 lower body exercises, we got 2 upper body exercises. The upper body, we're going to be working with the band, again working on some rotation through the rib cage. Lower body, we're going to work on loading the hips back and forth, okay? So, very first movement is going to be a hip shift, single arm, RDL. So what's going to happen is you're going to need a dumbbell or just some sort of heavy object from around the house. You could have just like a jug of water, thing of laundry detergent, whatever you got around. And we're going to start with the feet about shoulder width and a soft bend in the knees. And the goal is to load my opposite hip. So I'm going to shift. And as I shift, I'm looking to pull this hip back into the socket. So I'm going to pull that hip back. My hips slightly turn to the left, or whatever side you're working on. Suck that hip back. I'm going to reach that dumbbell to about upper shin, mid shin. I'm going to feel a stretch on my butt cheek, and I'm going to squeeze myself back up to square. So again, I'm going to pull my hip back. I'm going to hinge, and I'm going to end up just in front of that shin as I come up. From the side, same thing. I got this little shift, butt back. Find my stretch, find my load on the outside of the hip, come up, okay? So on this one, I'm looking for 10, shifting to the right, switch, 10, shifting to the left, etc. We'll do one side at a time, so we really load that side, you don't have to switch the dumbbell. So I got 10 on each side. The second one, we're gonna switch to upper body. We're gonna use a band, so one of these nice pull-up assist bands. We'll have a seat, and it's gonna be an alternating low row. So I'm gonna take my band, I'm gonna loop it over my feet. I'm going to go ahead and sit up nice and tall, slight lean back here. And it's going to be a back and forth. And as I row, I'm going to allow my body to rotate. So if I row with my right arm, I'm going to let the body turn a little bit to the right, getting nice and tight, point to my lower rib cage. And as I release, I start to rotate the other way, low row to the other side. And I'm just going to pivot back and forth, allowing that rib cage to turn. Let me spin towards you guys. So same thing. Notice as I row, that little rotation of the chest from side to side, really locking that shoulder down and back. And again, just allowing a little bit more rotational movement from the rib cage, okay, and the thorax. So that one, same thing. Let's go 10, 10. This one you are alternating that reciprocal motion. So I'm looking for 20 total, all right? Our next one, we're gonna go back to the legs. Again, you'll need one heavy object of some kind, dumbbell or something you find around the house. This one's going to be a reverse lunge. Only difference is, again, we're looking for a little bit of that rotation. We're looking for a little bit more of that loading in the hip. So if I'm standing square and I go to step back into my lunge, as I come down, I want to, again, load this hip. That means this hip is going to pull back. My hips will slightly turn over to the left, or the same side of the leg I'm working. Dumbbell is going to be on the back leg side. It's going to drop straight down, straight up, and I'm going to step back up to square. So again, we're working on this slight rotation, which if you think when you are running, jumping, zigzagging, playing sports, we always are ending up in this loaded position and exploding off that hip. So I'm looking to mimic some of that and really load the outside of the hip. So again, as I lunge, I step back. I might even use this free hand, like he's doing that imaginary row or kind of that swing of that arm. And I'm going to go down to a little turn, drop, and come right back up. So again, we're really pulling this hip back, load, stand it up. Make sure when you turn, you don't let that front knee come with you. Sometimes we go to do this, and this one just wants to bow out of there. I want to keep some adductor on, so I bring it back to the midline. Adductor's working, even a little hamstring. As I fight to keep that knee square, I get that little bit of a load in the hip, I get that nice rotation through the chest, okay? So same thing, we're gonna hit 10 on each side. Let's do all 10 on one side, switch, same thing. Get that load in the hip, little turn of the chest, we'll pull back with that opposite elbow. Stand up, you're gonna notice a lot happening here in the back side, okay? So again, 10 on the left, 10 on the right. Finally, we're gonna end it with some chest. And again, the entire point of this workout is rotation and loading the hips. So you kind of get a little bit of both on this one. I'm gonna hold on to both sides of my band. I'm gonna flip it over so it's kind of right below the shoulder blades. I can get in a nice strong position here. I'm gonna take a split stance. I'm gonna balance on my front foot, and I'm gonna hinge over slightly. So from the side, I'm not up tall here. I'm at about 45 degrees, okay? Once I'm here, whichever leg is forward, the opposite hand is gonna punch and reach underneath. And we come back, and again, we punch and reach underneath. So what happens when we rotate this direction is, again, that front hip, it's pulling back. I'm reaching, I'm getting the load on this front hip. I'm getting that rotation. I'm getting a nice squeeze on this front pec, as well as a good amount of oblique work. So again, we're locked in, we're balanced, we're at 45 degrees. I'm going to, it's kind of like you're doing like a big hook, reach under. I like a nice 1 to 2 second pause to feel that squeeze on my chest, and then I come back to the middle. Scoop it under, 1 to 2 second hold, bring it back, same thing. Other side, I got this closed off hip. I'm feeling the load in that front one. I'm going to scoop, squeeze, and bring it back. Scoop, squeeze, bring it back. Again, due to the foot position, we'll do one side at a time. 10 coming under on the right, 10 coming under on the left. And then that's gonna be all 4 movements. So again, we're looking for about 4 to 8 rounds. We're focusing on rotation and kind of a lot of that oblique work. And then we're also focusing on those hips and making sure we have the ability to shift from hip to hip, because that's what's gonna happen during locomotion when we run. And oftentimes when we get caught in one hip and we can't fully shift to the other hip, we're gonna end up with compensatory patterns. You're gonna end up having some issues. So give this a shot. Let me know how it feels. And again, really just focus on getting from side to side smoothly. Some of these might feel new for you. If you have questions, comments, reach out, let me know. Otherwise, enjoy today's rotational workout.